Good evening and welcome to Yada Yahweh Radio. My pleasure to be with you. I've missed the observation show today, but Scott and Captain Kirk did a great job. They talked more about the Exodus and just getting into the Amalekites and understand that you guys had a good time, covered a lot of material.
Yeah, we did. It was a lot of fun. I hope it comes across pretty good, but we had a blast. Mm-hmm.
Good. And I spent my day in the Garden City of Iowa City. If you're looking for a tourist destination, don't go.
Keep looking.
Oh, my youngest son, some many of you know, graduated defending his dissertation. He's got a PhD in medicinal chemistry, and now he wants to go to law school and get a degree in intellectual property, which is patents, copyrights, and trademarks. So he applied to 23 law schools, and he's heard from 10 of the 23, 7 acceptances, a wait list, and 2 no thank yous. And it's kind of interesting in the whole process. What would you think is the number one criterion for determining whether or not you get into a top law school? LSAT score, GPA, your major, your extracurricular activities. What would you think is the number one criterion? And I can tell you this for a fact. Nope.
It's not the grades?
Nope. No, grades really shouldn't even be. Grades shouldn't even be considered because if you're
if you
get an education in like engineering or the sciences, there is no grade point average in political science, which poli-sci is the number one major going into law school. Poli-sci is such an utter waste of breath. There is no GPA in poli-sci that should even compare to a GPA in the STEM, science, technology, engineering, or math. But no, those not GPA. It's the color of your skin.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Underrepresented minority, particularly black female. Doesn't matter what your LSAT is. Doesn't matter what your GPA is. Doesn't matter. Nothing matters. You can get into a top law school with really crappy performance.
Well, you still have to get through the course.
Yeah, they still have.
I don't care where you start.
Figure out some way to get
you to be able to function in the course.
Yeah, who knows how they work that out? But they're very proud of the percentage of women and the percentage of minorities. But if you look at, all these law schools have there's a site that you can go to. It's called Law School Numbers, where you can look at the number of acceptance and rejections. At 100% of the rejections in their lower quadrant of GPA and LSAT, 100% are black females. So it's sort of interesting that affirmative action was struck down because affirmative action is absolutely unconstitutional. It's making a decision based strictly upon race. And yet it's the dominant factor in law schools. Anyway, that had nothing to do with Iowa. We were there because it was one of the 7 schools my son's been accepted to. It's the 20th ranked law school in the country. And
well, what did he actually think of it? What did he think of it?
The city is dismal. The campus itself is not very good. The law school building is very dated. He met with one unbelievably spectacular professor and one not so good. So he left there by saying, maybe the 20th ranked law school in the country, but there's other schools that are better. He was offered
not where I want to spend my time.
Yeah, he was offered a huge scholarship to attend Indiana. They're the 25th ranked law school in the country. We're going to go there on Wednesday. Nice scholarship at Ohio State and great meetings that he's had already with Ohio State. The classiest law school, just in terms of sheer beauty and alum support, is SMU in Dallas, Texas. We'll go see that, and he's going to go see North Carolina, Chapel Hill. The best location, of course, is a school that I'm sure he won't attend. But he was also accepted at Pepperdine, which is in the hills overlooking Malibu. Yeah, that's a place. But it's only ranked like 50 something. So if you get into a top 20 law school, you wouldn't go to a 50th law school. But that's what we were doing today. Began the program before we started talking to JB about the single most enjoyable thing in life, and that's toddlers. I mean, you can see why God wanted to have a family. I mean, yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah.
God is the smartest person in the universe, smartest individual in the universe. He could do anything. He could have anything he wants, do anything he wants. And what he most wanted to have is to be surrounded by a bunch of toddlers, which is you and I. And I have now really, for the first time, come to appreciate it. Yeah, I'm a dad, and I got to see my sons grow up, and that was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun together. And we're still having fun together, Joe. But being a grandpa, it's just an extraordinary experience. My granddaughter is now 17 months. She's going to come over to play. We have a play date, and she's going to do a sleepover again tomorrow night. So my wife is in Charlottesville, so Grandpa is going to be Grandpa on duty as the principal caregiver. But it is just so much fun. This little girl is so cute, so smart, so engaging. It's just the most fun. It's easily the most fun I ever had, is being a grandpa. And I know there's those of you that are emailing me, and I haven't been really attentive to my email, but between working with my son and his law school ambition and being a grandpa, it's devouring a lion's share of my time, and I don't think there's anything I've ever done that has been as visual in terms of appreciating why God chose to create life and have a covenant family. Is being a grandfather. Brings total joy. So those things being the case, JB's daughter is just shy of a year?
Yep, she'll be a year on Wednesday.
So she is just now pulling herself up and taking a step or so and walking.
For a while, but
yeah, walking assistance. So she's within weeks of walking, which changes everything. Batten down the hatches.
She's taken a few steps, but not too much yet. But any day now, we figure.
Yep. And she has like a dozen words or so?
Yeah, actually, probably a little more than that. And we think she said her first full sentence the other day. She pulled herself up and was playing with this box, and she just looked at both of us with this real quizzical look. And Patty heard it clear as day. She goes, "What is this?"
Wow.
So she's already curious. I like that.
Wow. Yeah, see, our youngest son spoke in full sentences somewhere between 10 and 12 months. Our granddaughter probably has 50 or 60 words, but she's yet to use a verb. So it's for her, it's strictly words, nouns, almost all nouns, and no. I'm sure she thinks she's expressing herself in full sentences, but they're indecipherable from our point of view. So that's the fact that she said, "What is this?" and could use subject, verb, object. That's extraordinary. She must have smart parents.
I don't know about that, but
one of the things that's interesting though is how much we work with our children to share what we know. I mean, everything they look at, we're saying the word. We're encouraging good behavior. We're ignoring bad behavior. We're reading books. We're pointing things out. We're constantly speaking. We're trying to model appropriate behavior. It's just like Yahowah and the covenant. Mm-hmm. And we were talking before the show began about how my son, once he graduates from law school, he'll make a pretty good living as a intellectual property attorney. And I said, I'm looking forward to being a dependent as opposed to having him as a dependent. And I was joking, of course, with that. And I said, but the truth is, one of the reasons I love the covenant so much and I'm so comfortable with Yahowah is that I'm a dependent, a totally complete dependent. Yeah, I love being a dependent. Is is really good, particularly when Dad happens to be the creator of the universe.
See, I've always enjoyed being a bit of a bum. You know, wandering the planet like Kwai Chang Caine with no legal tender and no responsibilities.
I mean, I don't know if you're being facetious. I'm not being facetious.
I've never been a bum. I'd like to try it out once, you know. But
I don't know with Yahowah. The concept of being a dependent. I mean it in the sense of being. I am dependent upon him, and I am a beneficiary of his benevolence.
I don't think I've had anybody buy me a dinner in 10 years, except maybe once. I think Shireen, Yalda's sister, said, "No, I'm paying for this." I said, "Well, okay."
Yeah, I don't know if I've had
I'm
anybody
having ribeye, you know.
Yeah, it's probably been once for me in 10 years too.
Right. Yeah.
But you know, the relationship with Yahowah, it's he's buying the store for us, buying dinner, providing the inheritance, lots of entitlements.
It's a great deal, you know. If everybody goes on about, you know, they have questions and they have this. You know, there was a conversation in UT this week, and it had to do with really what am I going to do for Pesach or whatever. And I said, you know. Or no, what it was this woman who's in our group, her husband is not covenant, which is a problem, you know, many of us have. And I said, mainly I just explained to people we're trying to respond. And if you can get people to understand, it is about responding to something that you understand, as opposed to doing some religious action, which is completely meaningless as far as I'm concerned. You know, then you're in the ballpark, and that's all you really got to be.
Right, responding to an invitation. And
we're
then
just responding.
Well, it's an invitation. We're responding to the invitation, and we're celebrating what we have come to understand.
Yeah, well, that's the best way to put it. It's definitely responding. And, I mean, if I was to talk to you or you were to talk to anybody else and there was, you know, no response, we'd probably just walk away, you know.
Correct. You know, I think that all of us, and we've talked about this before, all of us were introduced to Yahowah before we knew his name, before we knew anything about his covenant or his Torah, and we were all introduced. God introduced himself to us. One way or another, he said, you know, this is where you're going to find me. Like to get to know you. And the thing that mattered is our willingness to respond. We responded to the introduction. We responded and began to search. We were eager to know. We responded based upon where the words led. When we came to understand what he was offering and what he expected in return, we responded to what he was asking.
Absolutely.
Like all relationships. You know, if you, in fact, my son had 2 interviews today. One interview, this woman who was a professor there went out of her way to say, listen, I'd really love you to have you here, and these are the things that we have that would be perfect for you, that would that I would personally enjoy helping you achieve. And she just continued to say all these wonderful things. This is what I'd like to provide. And the other said, so why are you here? What do you want? You know, it's the responsiveness of one.
Which interview would you rather be in? You know?
Oh, my goodness. But put yourself in Yahowah's position. Who do you want to be around? Somebody that says, you know, why are you here? And, you know, what are your questions?
Or even worse, you know, with most religious people, it's the friend who, you know, every time they call you is going, hey, man, I need to borrow $20. Right. Hey, and can you help me with this? Hey, can you do this for me? And that's the only time you ever hear from them.
Right. Help me out of this pickle. As opposed to...
sounds like my kids, but... Okay.
Yeah. This other one said, tell me about your background. Tell me about what you're looking for. And then I'll tell you about how I think I can be of benefit. And the way that we engage makes all the difference in the world. It's about our responsiveness in the relationship.
Well, the first one only missed, not the first one, but the second one you talked about. They only missed one little. The preface should have been, "Hey, stupid," and and then went on. I mean, it's so abrasive. I mean, really.
Oh, it's just so abrasive. It's that same attitude that he had to deal with so long in the PhD program, where the professors were, God, you think you were doing them a favor. And anyway, it was, one had every reason as to why that was a stupid idea and what a waste of time, and don't do that, and I couldn't be less interested. And the other was, wow, yeah, here's all the opportunities and what we can contribute, and why this would be a wonderful experience.
I was looking at chapter 12 here, Craig, and boy, I thought, the bastards of bastards, they're all in D.C., and it looked like they were talking about them. I mean, really, it was just so crazy.
Yeah, chapter 12 of Observations is not finished yet. I finished translating chapter 3 and 4 of Isaiah, but and I've written.
And that's what I was looking at, Yahowah 3.
Yeah,
I mean, boy,
And
wow.
what it is God decides that just in case you didn't get it, rather than just being generic and saying, there's a problem with religion and politics and militarism, I'm going to list every profession that I despise. And those professions are all going to be religious leader, academic leader, military leader, political leader, and all the people that are deployed by them, and just going to go right on down and say these.
Oh yeah, it was a litany of world leaders, is what it was, and people that are respected within the matrix of Babylon. And it was just incredible. You sit there and you read this and you go, yeah, that falls right in line with everybody that wants to run around and destroy other people's lives and control them, right?
So I had finished and did all the commentary and all the writing on translating on that chapter, and then, but I think maybe it's the next chapter that begins. There's this transition, and it's a really terrible transition in English Bibles where they cut between 3 and 4, and it transitions into the branch. And so you look at this word and say, does it really mean branch as in the messianic symbol, or does it really mean green and grow? And in particular, in Yahowah 3:4, I think it means green and grow. And I'll tell you the context of it, and I don't think it means branch there. And the reason it's interesting is it's ultimately going to lead to Zechariah, where Roy is of the conclusion that Zechariah 3, where there's a trial in heaven with Satan playing the adversarial role, the protagonist, and a messenger of Yahweh playing the proponent, being tried before Yahweh, and he thinks that the Yosha there is Yosha ben Yahweh. And I think that the Yosha there is Yosha, the high priest of Jerusalem. And I think it's symbolic of Jerusalem. But it does in 3 speak about the branch. And then in 6, you've got Yosha again as the high priest, but with all the metaphors and all the references being symbolic of Yosha ben Yahweh. And so you have to say, okay, who does Yosha the high priest represent in 3 and 6, and is it the same thing? So the implications of branch has got me to the point where the chapter is going to be twice as long, and I'm right now dealing with every reference to this word branch, which also means to grow and to become green, to flourish in terms of plant life. And so one of the things that I learned is, I would say one of the things I've had reinforced is I have a really unique, and I'm not claiming I'm right, I'm just telling you that I have a extraordinarily different and unique take on both Eden and Sukkah. I don't think I've ever heard anybody else have this perspective on it. Again, I do not claim to be right. I'm very comfortable with it, and Yahshua 3:4 seem to affirm it. And what I've said is that I'm going to share this again because it's even if I'm not right, I think the perspective this provides is still beneficial. And if I am right, it's one of the most profound thoughts that we as humans can possess. My thought was that the reason that Eden is presented in the detail in the way that it is because Eden is God's idea of perfection. He doesn't care if there's one person or two. Doesn't care if there's 10,000. Doesn't matter. Yahweh created the universe and life, and then humans with an asama, because he wanted to have a father-child relationship. He wanted to enjoy helping a toddler become an adolescent and ultimately a companion, a lifetime companion. Go through that toddler stage all the way to my adult sons are even as maybe as much fun, if not more fun, than the toddler. He wanted to do that, and so what Eden represents is this perfect environment, not only of a celebration of life, and God saying, celebrate life together, animal life, plant life, just the beauty of the place. God really likes camping out and exploring and talking about and investigating life. But it's a place without religion, a place without politics, a place without a judicial branch and that isn't the least bit militaristic, as a place where it's just Yahweh and his children. And it was my conclusion that Sukkah is a celebration of Eden. It's a 1,000-year celebration of Eden where the entire earth is going to be transformed back to the conditions of Eden. There'll be no government, no leaders, no religions, no religious anything, not a single religious artifact or religious individual, no politics, no militaries. And I was convinced that Yahweh in that 5 days between Kippurim and Sukkah was going to transform the earth, beginning with Jerusalem, and then Yehudah, and then Yisrael, and he was going to remove all traces of man's pollution and corruption, particularly religious and political and militaristic artifacts.
Well, I'm convinced of that right off, that part for sure, 100%.
And then what he's going to do is, in place of all of the muck that man has made, all of that's going to be pulverized, and the people themselves are going to be eliminated, and he's going to turn the entire earth into the conditions of Garden of Eden, and we're going to have the opportunity to camp out for 1,000 years. And so I think that everything comes full circle, that the garden is presented as the example of what the 1,000-year celebration of Sukkah represents, and Sukkah represents where we're headed. It's not just 1,000 years. 1,000 years for eternity is a nanosecond. But what is God going to do with the new universe that he's going to create in our presence? We are going to be just like Adam with God in the new universe, exploring life and his inventiveness. That's what we're going to be doing forever. So if I'm right about this, it explains what the purpose is of the 7 invitations to meet with God, and why they end with camping out Sukkah, and why Sukkah represents us returning to the conditions of Eden, and why Eden represents God's ideal of what he most wants to achieve and enjoy with his children.
Well, there's a couple of things you can do with that. First of all, as it was in the beginning, so it'll be in the end. And what you're saying is true because of that. And you can also see the dismantling of the world in the same way it was originally dismantled and corrupted. You see all this, there's markers along the way, on both sides of this thing.
Right.
To the good and to the bad.
Yeah, and in this transition between chapter 3 and chapter 4 of Yahshua, what you find is that the word that is often translated branch to get a messianic symbol, in all likelihood is not speaking of Yosha, the Messiah, but is instead speaking of the earth. Now that all traces of, you mentioned it, all those the elite, political elite, academic elite, religious elite, judicial elite, military elite, all of them are gone, and everything that they built and established is gone. Their institutions are all gone. And what Yahweh is going to do is, it's one thing to rid the world of all of those scabs. It's another thing to replace it with the most beautiful thing in the world, which is life. And that's what he's going to do. And I think that's
well. I mean, as I'm sitting here, if I look at that entire passage, that's clearly what it's pointing at. It's not pointing at an individual.
I don't think so. I think
not.
it's pointing at the replacement of all things religious with the ultimate beauty of the Garden of Eden, and how we're returning to the Garden of Eden. That's what I think Yahweh is specifically offering us in this.
No, the fruit and offspring of the land, approaching majestic proportions and things. Yeah, sure, of course. I have to agree with you.
Yeah. So the particular passage is in that day. Now this is, put it in context. This is what Yahweh said. Then Yahweh said, indeed, because the daughters of Zion, signs posted along the way, are self-exalting, arrogant, and hard to understand. They walk about with their necks stretched out while they seductively flirt, deceptively ogling with the intent to cheat with their eyes and their appearance, taking quick little steps, skipping along in a feminine way, and gallivanting they walk with jingling bangles designed to attract attention clasped on their feet. Yahweh, therefore, will afflict their balding scabs with lesions, and the crowns of their heads of the daughters of Zion. Moreover, Yahweh will expose their disgraceful facade. By the way, as also throughout this, in fact, this is part of the party, he does not like religious dress-up. He says, in that day, Yahweh will reject and remove that which is associated with the elaborate ornamentation of the bangles clasped upon the ankles as if a fetter, the sun disk medallions worn as headbands and necklaces depicting crescent moons, the spherical pendants, the bracelets, and the headscarves, as well as the headdresses and the decorative sashes, the chains and wraparound covering worn by women to confine, the receptacles for the souls, in addition to the enchanting charms. The identifying rings, especially those which serve as symbols of authority, and also the nose rings, the fancy white robes of state, the capes and veils, the shawls worn by the women, and their handbags used to hold precious metals and coinage, the wooden tablets, the papyrus scrolls, and hand-held mirrors, the fine linen garments used as fancy underwear and for sleeping.
And we know what that is. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just breaking up the religious guys. Just
the religious dress-up. The large veils worn by those who have been subdued. Well, that's the
people playing
Muslim
religious dress-up.
Religious
but those are the
dress-up.
people. Those are the people that advance the concept of worship over the concept of understanding. I mean, it's crazy, but that's exactly
I have
the
come
point.
to try to the greatest ability to look at things through Yahweh's eyes. So I see somebody playing religious dress-up, and I want to vomit. Well, God is saying that it relates to any form of religious dress-up. Rather than impressing him, he is disgusted by it. And he is going to
pretty well named them all there. He covered it all.
Anybody playing religious dress-up, you are in serious trouble. In fact, you are toast when Yahweh returns. He despises it. And then
the prayer shawl, that's that underwear gig right there.
And then it shall come to exist that instead of the aromatic spiced perfumes, the stench of decay from rotting away will be present. In place of the utility belt for weapons with a scabbard, a tethering rope. And instead of exerting one's energy and laboring over fancy hairstyles, they're going to be bald. Then in place of expensive and ornamental robes of ignorance, a sarong, I should say, of humiliating sackcloth, a physical stigma, scar, and brand, instead of beauty, shame. Males of your species by the sword shall fall, and your most capable warriors in the battlefield fighting in the war. And her doorways, her openness to unfolding disclosure of knowledge, her portals to understanding, entrances to larger opportunities and ability to flee, alas, will groan under the distress and will respond to the grievous situation. And she will be cleaned out and destitute, living on the ground. Then in that day, 7 women who are belligerent and stubborn, hardened and harsh, will overpower, being aggressively assertive with one man, approaching while saying, our own bread we will eat, and our clothes we will wear. However, and nevertheless, let us be called by your name, with it upon us, to gather up, transfer, and withdraw our reproach and contempt as a result of our taunting insults and blasphemous slurs, our harmful statements and lowly status. Hypocrites they will be. Then it goes into 4:2. In that day, the growing plants and the fulfilling branch. Now, this is a shemak. And shemak can be branch or it can be growing plants. You choose. It means living vegetation.
You went with the plants.
I lean towards
because
the plants,
they're either, whether you're talking Yahusha, but he is actually, if you look at Zechariah, upon the return, he's called what? He's really called Yahweh in his one and only name.
Right.
Yahweh,
right. And so what I decided to do is I was going to play it straight and give you both options, and then I was going to take, there are 10 places in the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms that the term shemak, branch, which is that's a tertiary meaning, is ascribed to Yosha. And I was going to go through each of them and determine where it was a symbol of Yosha and where it was a, literally speaking, of transformative growth, of growing plants. And here I think it's growth. I think it's the living vegetation which sprouts and thrives, and the that which springs forth increasing greatly, and it brings a mission to fruition, successfully completing everything that was required to support abundant life. Of Yahowah shall be, accordingly, beautiful and splendorous, and therefore approach as a manifestation of glorious power, and the fruit and offspring of the land approaching majestic, in addition to the gloriously attractive and shining appearance of the remnant of survivors of Yisrael and Yehudah. We're going to be beautiful. They're going to be beautiful.
I can see where that can go either way. I mean, it can really go either way.
Yeah, it can go either way.
It can truly go either way. And the reason that I say that is because the approach of the manifestation of power. And of course,
but you know, well, I agree. It can go either way. I think
well, I mean, but it could go either way. I think it's where you went, but that's just
I think
me.
that the greatest manifestation of Yahweh's power, not only transforming us, which he says there, that we become radiant light.
Right, but transforming the planet.
Transforming the planet into that which is beautiful. It takes a special talent to create life, a special talent to make that life beautiful, for it to flourish. I think it's one of God's greatest talents. And he's
especially after you've had a nuclear war.
Correct. You know, the planet is just destroyed. And so I think that is a manifestation of his power.
Well, it is. It absolutely is. Yeah, sure.
Just as us becoming radiant light is a manifestation of his power. So while I agree with you that it speaks of both, I'm not really ready to say if it's one more than the other at this point, because
plus in Yahshua it talks about all around Yisrael the land is like a wasteland. It's like there's a desertification that's taken place at that point.
Right.
Sure.
Now Yahshua 4:3 says, "And it will come to pass that he who remains in Zion and the remnant spared in Jerusalem will be called set apart, because for him to approach all of those are written and permanently marked for lives in Jerusalem. Whenever the upright one of mine shall have washed the excrement and filth of the daughters of Zion, and by association purging and rinsing off the blood of Jerusalem from the midst by way of the Spirit of good judgment regarding the means to resolve disputes, and by the spirit of blowing rage." Yahweh is not coming back happy. He's going to be happy, but there is a period of time where it's going to be, if you're on the right side of the covenant, you're going to be cleansed, and the excrement and filth is washed away. But if you're on the wrong side, it's blowing rage. Then Yahweh will create, initiating something cutting edge upon every location and dwelling place associated with the ridge line of Zion, as well as over the Mikra. A cloud by day and smoke, and brilliant shining radiance and majestic light of flaming fire by night. For indeed, upon all of this manifestation of glory is a canopy and shelter. So this is the picture, word picture of what's going to happen during those 5 days between Kippurim and Sukkah. And just as the Exodus was a word picture of what God is doing, we're going to have that same cloud pillar canopy, the upright pillar of cloud, and the same pillar of fire visible in Jerusalem. And then there will exist a temporary sheltered dwelling to camp out for shade. And the shade is the same term that is used as to be in one's image, but in a lesser dimension than the one whose image we're being made in. Then there shall exist a temporary sheltered dwelling place to camp out for shade, for protection by day from the devastating heat, and for a place, a safe place, and for a shelter of refuge from the outpouring of floodwaters and from the rain. The earth's going to be very desolate, so it's going to have to rain to nourish all of this plant life. And there's going to be floodwaters that are going to pour out right through the Mount of Olives, right through the middle of the Temple Mount, and then down into the sea. And he's talking about his return to Jerusalem. But what he's saying here is, after I reestablish the earth and the conditions of the Garden of Eden, we're going to go camp out. I'm going to create a temporary sheltered dwelling to camp out, a sukkah.
Yeah, that would be a sukkah, wouldn't it?
Yeah, he uses the term sukkah.
Mekre number 7. Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
so,
sure.
Yeah, that's the material in 4:6, and then how, from my perspective, that then led us to saying, all right, so let's track down. What is he saying here? Is he really saying that I'm going to make the earth back in the conditions experienced in the Garden of Eden, so that it's a wonderful place to camp out? So it's, reminds me of the most enjoyable camping trips I ever took with my son, with our hikes in the High Sierras. And it was just breathtakingly beautiful where we backpacked. And when I'm reading into this, and maybe it's my twisted perspective, is that God's going to transform the earth so that it's fun to camp out together, so that everything surrounding us is beautiful, including our own nature.
Well, it probably wouldn't be fun to camp out in a desert wasteland, now would it? After you just
no.
I have
hell on earth.
Kirk, you live in California, and you know of the Palm Desert, Palm Springs. But now that desert wasteland is beautiful because they've added water, and they put in some really nice golf courses. And but that's a place I used to love to camp out. And I actually like the desert. I think it has a stark beauty. But given my choice, I love to see jagged mountains, soaring pine trees, and streams and lakes, whitewater streams and lakes. That's what I enjoy the most.
Well, when it comes to painting, it's a lot more fun with the water than without the water. Only there's a limited amount you can do with deserts.
I mean, I like big bodies of water in terms of ocean waves and particularly sunsets on oceans with the waves, and I love the reflections on the lakes. But for just sheer beauty, there's nothing that impresses me more than a whitewater stream.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely, that's true. Cool. I mean, I mean, that's the ultimate right there. Sure, get up into the Rocky Mountains and have a stream. Yeah, absolutely, sure.
But that's what I think God is talking about here. That's what I think that whole testimony is about, is creating this environment that for 1,000 years is going to be spectacular for us to camp out and explore together around the world, particularly for His children that survived the tribulation. But the rest of us will be camping out in this existing universe, and then all of us get to camp out in the new universe that He's going to create with us as witnesses. That's what I read into this. I think it's indicative of what God views as enjoyable. And
well, it's kind of indicative of what is enjoyable. If you think back in your life, I mean, this is most people now that I know. And this is assuming you're old enough to have actually went camping or lived out in a tent for a couple of weeks, that kind of thing. Many people today, for some reason, haven't. I think.
One of my favorite places, I just read in the chat log, somebody was writing about Yosemite. I don't know how many of you have been to Yosemite. Kirk, I'm sure you've been to Yosemite there in Northern California.
No, but I've been very close. But I've been to all the mountains up there.
Yeah. Yosemite Valley is just inspiring. There's the only two places on Earth that I think rival the Yosemite Valley are this 17-mile drive up the Carmel Monterey coast, and also the San Juan Islands off of Seattle and Vancouver. Those, in my view, are the most beautiful places on Earth. But
it must be pretty spectacular. Have you ever been through the Beartooth Pass?
No.
In Montana? Oh, that's astounding. It's breathtaking.
Yeah, I've been through a lot of Montana. I've spent a lot of time in Montana, inside and immediately outside of Yellowstone Park, which I think is very pretty. My favorite national park actually isn't Yosemite. It's up there in that part of the world. It's Glacier.
Yeah,
near Missoula. Yeah, absolutely.
Astounding. Kind of up the far northwest portion, bordering on up there in Idaho too. But Glacier National Park,
well, there's
right
two
next
of those,
to the Canadian
actually.
border. Yeah, it's right there along the Canadian border. My eldest son and I took a digital photography class from the University of Washington, where we spent a week, where you get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and go picture sunrises and then moonrises and moonsets and over waterfalls and lakes, and oh my, life is beautiful. Yah is an amazing architect, and He celebrates life, and that's one of the reasons He is so opposed to man demeaning it, harming it, polluting it, corrupting it, killing it. He loves it, and I think the thing that we're all most frustrated with is that Yah is so wonderful. He's so inventive, so kind, so generous, just so enjoyable to be around as He really is, to see how religions have turned him into this mean monster or ridiculous caricature, and have demeaned and obfuscated his proposal, his gift, his intent, just makes you mad.
Well, it turns you to rational thinking once you look at his words, because this is exactly what I was saying, and this is what they can't do. I've found this. What they can't do. And I've said this before. They don't understand this has nothing to do with religion and everything to do with something called reality. We didn't pop out of nothingness. Somebody created it.
Yeah.
And then
absolutely.
Here's the Creator leaving words that make total sense. And then everybody says, oh, I'm going to pray to him. I'll bow to him. I'll this to him. Yet if you were in your own home and somebody walked in, one of your own children, and got on their knees and started saying, oh, Craig, oh, I worship you. Oh, Kirk, oh, JB, can you give me $5? Oh, please, almighty Dad. You'd put them in a mental institution.
Yeah. Well, give an example.
I started trying to teach my daughter how to worship me. I make her sit down and bow every day.
Yeah, that'll be really good. I was just reading a little bit of chat room again. Lisa was talking about, I don't want all that cold stuff. Give me a beach. One of my favorite places in the world is the beaches, particularly in the Bahamas. But all the Caribbean beaches are beautiful. I happen to like the Bahamas.
They're beautiful. They're great dives.
The water in the Bahamas is like 85 degrees, and the sand is perfect white. There's like 18 colors of blue in the water. And but think about the beauty of a tropical beach, the warmth of it, the warmth of the water, the clarity of the water, the various colors of blue, and then of the coral reefs and the brilliantly colorful and interesting design.
Well, I mean, that's just that's a whole nother that's a fantasy.
Yeah, and I'm a
world,
scuba diver, so I mean, I enjoy those kind of experiences. Now, can you imagine going down and seeing all the beauty of these tropical fish and the coral reefs, and walking out of this 85-degree water onto the whitewashed sand, and it's just everything you look at is stunningly beautiful and enjoyable, and saying, I think I need to do is I need to fear the creator of this stuff, because obviously whoever created this is really mean. I mean,
yeah, exactly. And it all works perfectly too. How weird is that?
How weird is it? Yes. There was a discovery last week that the oldest forms of life on this planet were originally thought to be about 3.6, 3.7 billion years old, with the planet itself being like 4.5 billion years old. And that's the fossils that have been found in the I guess called the Greenland shelf, the Greenland area. And scientists have found another form of life that dates back to 4.2 billion years old. So before the Earth even cooled, it was still being bombarded by asteroids and meteorites and all that sort of thing. And now it's a completely different life form. And the interesting thing is this life form exists today, unevolved. And so the scientists, looking at absolute proof that evolution from a simple organism somehow miraculously beat all of the 10 to the 50th power odds to become a life form, beat all the 10 to the 50th power odds of figuring out a way to nourish itself and process nourishment, beat the 10 to the 50th power odds of reproducing.
I think the odds are a little higher than 10 to the 50.
Yeah, absolute proof now that life emerged on this planet immediately after the planet was formed, and that two distinctively different forms of life that have nothing in common are the first two forms of life that came to exist, as opposed to one evolving from the other, and that one that didn't evolve at all, it still exists as it existed 4.2 billion years ago. Mm-hmm. And so with absolute proof that there was not time for the random chance to somehow create life, It's absolute proof that it didn't evolve into more complex forms of life, and that two very different forms of life came to exist in different places.
Simultaneously.
Right, essentially simultaneously. Rather than saying, well, that just absolutely destroys the theory of macroevolution, and we ought to be looking for an entirely different theory. They go say, well, I guess life wasn't that hard to form after all. I mean, the fact that two different forms of life in different places, different times, and instantaneously, it just means that maybe our calculations on life are all wrong, and that it must be easy.
Well, if it's easy, how come it hasn't happened again?
Yeah, why
don't we see it happening every day?
Yeah. Why over this?
Well, my favorite's when you show them all that and they go, well, it could have come here, on an asteroid from another planet. Life evolved there, and it just so happened to get...
Yeah, so life came from an asteroid from another planet. How did it get on the asteroid, goof? I mean, come on.
Right.
And
of course the issue
my favorite, it was aliens.
The asteroid of any size
they get there?
Earth, and the temperatures become so high that it becomes almost plasma in its existence, and in interstellar space it is so cold it's essentially just very close to absolute zero.
Oh well, zero Kelvin.
Whatever species does
not only that,
is already the pinnacle of evolution. Apparently, it has no further
then
need to evolve.
As it enters the atmosphere, it's just totally going to combust. I mean, give me a break.
It reaches the plasma type
nothing organic could survive that. Nothing.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's already the pinnacle of evolution. It has no further evolving needed to do it. It can survive all that.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Well, I got to tell you guys,
it's so desperate.
Yeah, I'll tell you what isn't pathetic is that new Wolfgang puck oven I used tonight to make a roast. It was pretty outstanding, I got to tell you. It was just absolutely great.
You were a carnivore.
I'm a carnivore.
Yes, making a
Lisa's
sacrifice.
down there, her mouth is watering. I can see now she's picking on poor Wolfgang Puck. But let me tell you, the guy knows how to invent an oven. Yeah, it really works. It makes everything better.
All right,
okay.
I want to return to we were at 2.3 where we ended our program last week. And 2.3 reads as follows. For indeed, because from Zion the conspicuous signs posted along the way shall be brought forth at the Torah, the source from which teaching, guidance, and direction flow. The word of Yahweh from Jerusalem, the source of guidance and reconciliation. So if you had any question about what Zion represents, would you turn to, since Yahweh is the author of the term Zion. He brought us the term Zion. I would think you would have a reasonable likelihood of being correct if you were to assume that Yahweh is capable of defining the purpose of Zion, since he created it. What is he saying?
One would think.
Okay.
Sure.
So starting with that theory, does Yahweh tell us in this statement what the purpose of Zion is? Let me read this again, just in case you weren't listening. For indeed, because from Zion the conspicuous signs posted to mark the way shall be brought forth the Torah, the source of teaching, guidance, and direction. The word of Yahweh from Jerusalem, the source of guidance and reconciliation. What is the purpose of Zion?
Well, it's the signpost where the Torah is brought forth to mankind and
teaching, guiding, and understanding.
So the Torah is signs posted along the way to the Torah.
Conspicuous signs. You didn't hide it.
Right.
Big
And the Torah is the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem.
Yeah. I didn't see the word law anywhere in there.
But isn't that powerful? That to be a Zionist is one who points the way to the Torah.
Yeah, exactly.
We're Zionists.
It's not a political belief system. That's what it's been turned into. It's ridiculous.
No,
I'm a total
is not a political
Zionist.
term. It is not a religious term. Right. It is not a political term. It is not a racial term. Yahweh here defines Zion. It's his word. And he says Zion is signs posted along the way to bring us to the Torah.
And doesn't that destroy Paul immediately?
Oh, it not only destroys Paul, but it establishes the essence of one of the most important terms in the Torah, which is Zion. The signs were posted along the way to bring us to Torah.
It destroys the religious concept of Zion. It destroys the political concept of Zion. It destroys two religions right there. Just destroys them.
And of course, you are correct. And I don't want to diminish Kirk in any way. Yahweh's disdain for Pauline Christianity. And yes, this statement absolutely and completely obliterates the myth of Pauline Christianity. He says that Zion exists to bring us the Torah, and that the Torah is the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem.
Right.
That is the antithesis of Pauline Christianity. If Paul was right, then God's a screaming liar. And if God's a screaming liar, then Paul was wrong.
That makes Paul wrong either way.
Is a liar.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And since the book of Yahshua is proven to have been inspired by Yahweh because of the profound amount of precise prophecy, particularly about Yosha, and the times that we find ourselves in now. I mean, the Syrian war and every aspect of the Syrian war is part of Yahshua 17 and 18. And of course, 53 and 54, plus much more of it, depicting Yosha's suffering, Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim, in year 4000 Yah. And of course, even the predictions of the way he would be born in Yahshua 6. There is no question that Yahshua is a prophetic book inspired by Yahweh. And in that book, Yahweh says, Zion exists to point the way to the Torah, and that the Torah is the word of Yahweh. End of conversation, end of debate.
What else do you need to know what to do? Study the Torah.
Christianity is destroyed. Islam is destroyed. Socialist secular humanism is destroyed.
Mm-hmm. Rabbinical Judaism.
Well, you pretty much name the ism, and it's out of there.
Yeah,
it's out of there. Yep. Then he shall execute good judgment, being discerning, by making appropriate connections regarding the Gentiles. And he shall reasonably conclude that the enriched and empowered people who are part of the family are right, deciding to vindicate them once and for all. Then they shall beat their weapons for plows, and their spears for pruning hooks. And Gentile nations shall not rise up against Gentile nations deploying weapons of war, and they will no longer train or teach conflict ever again. There are several insights here. We covered them when we went over this passage, and we're just using this as now a summary to bring us to our review of what Zion represents. But some of the insights here is that when Yahweh returns, there are going to be Gentiles that Yahweh chooses to vindicate. And he will vindicate them because he says there's only one Torah for Jew and Gentile alike. He's going to vindicate them based upon this thing he's just talked about, his word, which is the Torah. And so this is not just a celebration of the unification of Yisrael and Yehudah and Yahweh's return and the transformation of the earth and the removal of all religion and politics and militarism. It is a celebration of Gentiles who have been adopted into the covenant family. We've been mentioned throughout this discussion. We're going to be the ones beaming brightly, having this great time upon Yahweh's return as he erects his home of light for the family right on top of Orion. We're all going to be going there and celebrating it. So that's the first part of this. And the decision on the Gentiles is going to be made based upon whether or not they were right. Nothing to do with faith. And then the statement that God makes is indicative of the difference between the conditions that will be experienced then and the conditions that are experienced now. Right now, man is all about war. What does Trump want? He wants more aircraft carriers. He wants more military airplanes. He wants a larger military.
I think Trump's paranoid. I don't think Trump is a war man. I really don't. I don't believe that. I don't think that. I don't.
He's certainly the most committed to increasing the size of the U.S. military since
I think it's got to do with he's aware that we're moving away from a New World Order situation, or that's what he's trying to do. And I think he's going to fight for his life. I mean, I really do. I don't dislike the man. Now, is he right? Well, no.
It's not a political comment. I mean, I don't want to get into is Trump right or wrong. I'm just telling you that Trump is extraordinarily pro-military and wants to hugely expand America's weapons of war. That's what he wants to do.
Yeah, okay. I think they've all misused the military. That's for sure.
For darn sure. And America's military is about 100 times larger than it ought to be, rather than being too small.
Well, if you actually use the military, and this is not a political thing, I mean, as you know, Yahweh never, ever, from within his own land, I mean, he said, okay, destroy the religious types and the people that worship the moon god and the sun god and get rid of all them.
From our house.
From our land, but he never once promoted land outside of Jerusalem, outside the land, I should say, anywhere.
No conquest. Absolutely no conquest.
I mean, is there American imperialism? Oh, God, yes.
And God is disgusted by military imperialism. Disgusted.
But I think we had a discussion, I think in something I listened to here recently where, who's the dog and who's the tail, and I think England has been the dog all this time. I really do.
I don't know. What I think is that America is the new Rome, and it's the new Carthage. And
I think it's Tarshish, just like you said. I do think
Tarshish is Carthage. I think God is disgusted with military expression, with the killing on his planet. That's why he says, what is the difference that's going to exist? What is the primary existence? Once I get rid of politics and religion and I replace it with this beautiful earth, what is the primary difference? Not going to be any war. No,
and people are going to be engaged in production, in agriculture. And feeding themselves and growing and production.
So the second part is no war, no weapons. Fundamentally different than what man is now. And that's the whole thing that really irks me when I see all these military parades and sporting events in every place and people praising the military and military flyovers and all this kind of stuff, and how people are so grateful for their military and they think they owe a debt to military service and all that kind of crap.
The same way you feel, and I feel the same way, and I feel even, I got to tell you, I feel like those people are primarily used. I really do.
Yeah,
by their
I
uppers.
Feel sorry for them because they're willful dupes. But
I once did it.
What Yahweh is saying here is that if you want to choose to believe and trust your military for your freedom and for your protection, then you're not with me.
No, well, that's right.
Because when Yahweh returns, we all become dependents and trust and rely on Him, which means we don't need a military.
No, that is true. And you know what? There is no but to that. I mean, that's just the truth. I have to tell you, though, when I look at the entire system we have, which is so ridiculous, where you have people who have probably never even lived out here in the real world and produced anything in their life, handing people degrees, okay? I think the academics are worse than the military. I really believe that. I mean, they are just the scum of the earth, in my opinion. They are the scum.
I don't know which one.
They're worse.
I'm going to put the military.
I'm all in the same basket.
But I would actually put the academics worse. I would. Yeah, that's why he calls us. Laodicea.
The academics. I mean, I do think there's value in scientific study and in engineering. I think there's no value in studying poli-sci and I'm probably going to upset the people here. Yeah, just all of this liberal academia, socialist secular humanism, women's studies, black studies, social studies, I think is an absolute, utter, and complete waste of time. Now, I'm sorry if I've hurt somebody's feelings, but that, in my opinion, ought not matter, so it's irrelevant anyway. What's relevant here, that the last thing that I wanted to say, and we've talked about this before, a person has very little value if they don't work. Yahowah works. In fact, the term Masayah means the work of Yah. Yahowah works. He's God. When we work, we are productive. When we work, we grow. When we work, we contribute. We produce. There is tremendous merit, value in working. And that's why this notion that paradise is everybody sits there on comfy sofas while harps are being played, and we have skinless grapes tossed into our mouths. This notion of paradise being that way is not God's view of it.
No, that's Allah's paradise.
There is absolutely no reason with God being here that you would have weapons of war turned into plows and pruning hooks unless
you were
God recognized
agriculture.
That working was to our benefit, that it strengthens us, that it enriches us. And so work is a good thing. If you are opposed to work, you're probably not going to like eternity with Yahowah.
Yeah, but anytime you do production like that, I mean, honestly, I'm sure you've worked on a farm, haven't you, Craig? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. I own a farm.
Yeah, I know you do. And when you go out and let's say as an example you bale hay, just say that. You get done. And of course the old-fashioned way back in the day was you hook bales.
Right.
And what you would do is they were coming out of this machine. You'd be hooking it and pulling it up on a wagon and stacking it, and then you'd go and you'd loft it. And by the end of the day, you really felt like you got something done, and it was a very good feeling.
Right.
I
remember
instead of us
the land
sitting
for
here
my farm,
behind it.
And at the end of every day, I felt like I contributed something when I cleared that land.
Yeah,
by clearing
it's just
it,
a good feeling.
It was overgrown with multiflora, which was Jefferson's idea of you don't need barbed wire fencing, you just grow this multiflora, it'll make a hedge. Well, the birds picked up the seeds and it went everywhere. And it was filled with
those hedgerows, you mean?
Poison ivy and
thorns
poison oak vines and overgrown with saplings everywhere, so that the healthy trees were all starved out, and all sorts of barbed wire fencing. I mean, it was, and broom sage on the fields, and just overgrown. It's so bad in the woods that you couldn't even walk through them, much less see through them. So I cleared the land. I left all the old trees and limed the fields and removed the barbed wires and the trash, and what was ugly became beautiful. And
you're a regular desperado out there, but I have to tell you this.
I learned how to operate a front end loader and a backhoe and a bush hog. I didn't even know what a bush hog was, but learned how to operate a bush hog. And it was on the chainsaw, and there was a sense of satisfaction of knowing you transformed something that was ugly into something that was beautiful.
Yeah, but there's one other aspect to that, because usually this isn't done in a vacuum, and certainly with family it's not going to be done in a vacuum. You're doing it with other people. Yeah. And I'm not talking about a collective here, but you're out there working with other people in a farm situation. Somebody's driving the tractor. There's a couple of you hooking bales. You don't never loft by yourself, Right. And what happens there? Relationships are developed, aren't they? I mean, real ones.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when I would operate the tractor alone, and there were lots of springs.
I wouldn't trust you with a tractor.
No,
alone.
and they
Not
shouldn't.
For a
and they
while.
shouldn't. And here's this city slicker business guy, and he's operating this John Deere 5300 tractor with this front end loader. And I would go into these areas where the springs would come up, and the tractor would start sinking, and what was almost like quicksand. And I mean, it was never more than a minute when I would get in a life-threatening situation, or I'm trying to take these vines that were going up the trees, and I would try to pull them out with the front-end loader and up high and on a bank, and get the tractor tipsy so that it wanted to roll over. It never was more than 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes at the most, and one of the neighbors would show up and bail me out. You know, this guy's trying to do a good thing, but he doesn't know what he's doing.
Trying.
He's trying, though. Got to give him credit for trying. Got to keep him alive. And so, yeah, it is nice to have people there along with you, helping you out along the way.
But no, I mean, you gain friendships. You really do, and you gain relationships. And then, one of the things we used to do out on the farm was we'd have these big bonfires.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was there, and they were just really enjoyable things to do. Really enjoyable things to do.
Yeah, and I remember some of those bonfires.
That's the way to live.
Friends over, and it's extraordinary when you have, because on a big farm you can have a huge bonfire.
Oh,
you can
see them 30 feet in the air.
30, 40, 50 feet in the air bonfire.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. You get out in the middle of the night, and you can stand.
Well, like you say, you got these scoops,
and
you put trees in them practically.
We put trees in them. Oh, yeah, it was spectacular. Yeah. So they will never teach conflict again. That's our problem with humanity. We're so conflicted. It's all about conflict, about division. House of Yahweh.
Now there's one other thing about that, and this is this lifestyle you're talking about, the green growing out and really living it up instead of the you're talking about reality again, as opposed to setting up there with your harp or eating grapes on this cloud.
There is
like
something
a pillow.
more enjoyable than seeing a yard beautifully landscaped with flowers and trees and walkways and all that kind of stuff. There is something more beautiful than seeing it in the springtime all done up. And that is knowing that you were the one that planted those trees, that you came up with the design and the layout, and that you had the shovel, and you went to the nursery, and you picked out the plants, and you came up with the proper supplements to the soil and the appropriate fertilizers and systemics to create that. If you actually created it and then and planted it and nurtured it and then see it bloom, it's far more enjoyable and satisfying. So there's something to this. So it says then, house of Jacob, that would be Yisrael. Choose to walk this way, because then we can genuinely and continually journey through space and time of our own volition in the light of Yahowah. That's what he's offering. He's trying to tell us that, okay, I've transformed the earth. We're going to have a great time. But if you walk this way, if you follow those signposts to and through the Torah, then we can continually journey through all space and time of our own volition. And we're going to do so because I'm going to transform you and empower you with the light of Yahowah.
But that's the map. That's the Torah's map again. Right. We're back into it's a map. Right. Yeah. I remember when I first read something you had written about. It's like a finger pointing here and a finger pointing there. Remember? I don't know if you even remember writing it, but you did. You see all these little signs, as you called them. They're like fingers pointing in a direction over and over and over again. And that's exactly what he's saying Zion was, right? The signpost along the way. Because what happened there? Well, the city of Dode was built there, among other things, but let's see, the covenant was established there. Yahusha paid the ultimate, fulfilled Pesach and Matzah, and Bakurim, well, at least Pesach and Matzah, and right there. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Pesach, Matzah, Bakurim, and Shabu all took place right there. But that is the I would say that the single most important thing that took place there is actually the test that Yahweh prescribed for Abraham and Yishak, where they fulfilled the first Passover along with Yahweh and Yosha on Mount Moriah. And I think that is the greatest celebration of all that took place on Moriah, because that was the affirmation of the covenant, which is what enables all of us. And the second, of course, being the Yosha's fulfillment of all of those things in year 4,000 Yah. But I think we all do ourselves a disservice when we don't appreciate how important Dode's house is on the ridgeline of Moriah, and how Dode's house was built long before Yahweh's house, and how God is really into this idea of enjoying a loving relationship with his sons and daughters, and making us comfortable, and having us be settled, and having our house right next to his. So,
I think you said that Yahweh would be happy. Was happy in a tent. He really.
Was happy in a tent.
A lot that we are.
Yeah.
Well
but
situated.
he wanted Dode, his son, to be taken care of, and he was.
Absolutely.
And he will be.
That's pretty revealing about him as a father.
It is. Yeah, and it's an eternal celebration of his relationship with Dode. So he says, but then Yahweh says, okay, that's what I'm encouraging you to do. But you need to know most people aren't doing that. Except your people have rejected and abandoned the house and family of Jacob. What's the house and family of Jacob? It's the covenant. Because they are full of the ways of Eastern antiquity, and fortune tellers and magicians, and the practice of sorcery, by attempting to communicate with the dead souls and demonic spirits like the Philistine, the foreign foes who invade the promised land, invoking fear by terrorizing. Bringing of foreigners, they clasp hands and engage in the business of mockery and ridicule. There are few things that we've talked about that I despise more than religious dress-up and of religion corrupting the story of Yahweh. But one of those things is I despise the notion of a Palestinian people and of Palestine. And I read it in scholarly text that this is a road or a place in Palestine. I just want to puke when I hear that the world wants the Palestinians to have their own land. There are no Palestinians. This talking about the Philistine, which was the basis of the modern myth of the Palestinians. They're foreign invaders. They were all killed. They're all gone. They've been gone for 2,500 years. They don't exist. There is no such thing as a Palestinian. There is no such place as a Palestine. And
nobody's got to tell us that. All of us are aware of it.
But where there was a Philistine, it existed of 5 towns in what is today Gaza. It never was the West Bank. Ever.
No.
They're foreign invaders.
Somebody just asked me in an email, how do you celebrate Passover? Go to the temple?
Oh, my. Oh, my.
They all did it the first time at home. Tried it at home.
Yeah, the first Passover.
Yahweh
God
has
say
no
you got to
temple.
go to the temple?
No.
It was destroyed.
Get you some lamb. Get you some wine. Follow the menu if you want to be
get some unleavened bread. Right. Right.
Eat a beautiful meal.
Understand the correlation between the lamb and eternal life and what it represents, and the fact that I'm freeing you from the oppressive conditions imposed by religious and political people. That's what I'm freeing you from. And I'm going to give you eternal life based on the symbolism of the Passover lamb. And I'm inviting you to take part in this festival feast. And I want you to share the meal with your family and with your extended families. I mean, it isn't hard
no-brainer.
if you just understand what it represents. And these people that want to make it into a religious ritual or boy, you got to have a temple. You know, when Yahweh returns, he's not talking about rebuilding his temple. He's not putting a temple on the Temple Mount. It's a bayeth. It's a house for the family. And he's erecting it himself. It's a house of light for his family on the summit of Moriah, not on the Temple Mount. It's not a temple. You know, people who want to know Yahweh have got to get out and away from this idea of the Torah being a set of rules and laws to be obeyed, and to stop trying to think about what you need to do other than to listen to Yahweh, listen to his words, observe what he had to say in his Torah, come to understand what he is offering, what he expects, and respond. We'll go back to the first thing you said. It's all about our response, and our response can't be right unless we know what God is offering and expects. Very, very straightforward. And so here he's saying that that he is equating the Philistine, with foreign invaders who invade the promised land, invoking fear by terrorizing the offspring of foreigners. And he says that they are associated with Eastern antiquity. Fortune tellers, magicians, practice of sorcery. There's so much sorcery and fortune telling in the Quran and Hadith of Muhammad, of course, in Mecca being to the east of Saudi Arabia, east of Jerusalem. And he is associating the Philistine, therefore these people who call themselves Philistines, with what transpired in terms of sorcery, things associated with Satan to the east of Jerusalem, and there is no religion in the history of humankind more satanic than Islam. Their realm is filled with silver and gold. Boy, is that true. You know, Israel is a rich nation. Their realm is filled with silver and gold, and there is no end to their treasures. The land overflows with swift stallions. They've got all the weapons of war. There is no limit to their chariots of war. Their land is overwhelmed with religious images. Ooh, can you imagine a place with more religious images and more false gods?
No.
Yeah, then Israel, that's why I will never go back until Yahweh is there. I'll come back with him. I'm not going back between now and then. And false gods, the work of their hands. They convey their intent by bowing down in homage and allegiance to that which they have made with their fingers. Boy, doesn't that sound, I mean, that is religion. You make a shrine, you make an altar, you make any of this stuff that litters Jerusalem, the work of our hands, of human hands.
Oh, well, you condemn yourself with your own mouth. I mean, what does the word holy mean in Paleo Hebrew? What's it mean, Craig?
Set apart.
Well, there is no word holy.
When they translate it,
there is the word that is changed
Kodesh
to holy is Kodesh, which means to be set apart.
No, but I asked what holy means. It means diseased or sick.
Well, there is, well, the closest...
Well, look at holy. Whoa.
Yeah, the closest Hebrew word to the pronunciation of holy is diseased and sick, and a warning from God. That would be true. Yeah, but there is no word. The English word holy does not exist in
the English word holy comes from a sun goddess. That's where that comes from. That is correct. Yeah, I know. And so we know that his name is Halal ben Shakar, and it means arrogant son of the morning rising sun. So we certainly don't want to be attributing sun worship to the land. But it's not only that it's littered with these ridiculous religious shrines and temples and every other goddamn thing, but it's also littered with a mindset a horrible, holy mindset. They even call it the Holy Land.
Yeah, that's right.
And by doing so, they condemn themselves. It's just pathetic.
Yahweh refers to it as the set-apart land. And the set-apart city.
That's completely
and the
different,
set-apart
isn't
name,
it?
and the set-apart covenant.
Set-apart people.
And the set-apart, everything, the set-apart spirit. Everything with Yahweh, the Shabbat is set apart. The Mikre, invitations to meet, they're set apart. And if you want to be part of his family, you want to have any of these benefits, you'll be set apart. Set apart from what? The institutions of man, from the human family. Set apart from the mundane, from the normal. So this is what their realm is filled with. It's filled with all sorts of religious and political things that people bow down to in homage, that they give their allegiance to. So humankind bows down in submission and fear. Each and almost every individual is humiliated and humbled. So do not accept them. Do not support them. Do not endure them. Do not respect them. So, people say that you have to respect the office or respect your country, or if you're not patriotic, you're not being don't respect it.
Yeah.
No, clearly. Clearly, there's a definite line.
The idea that you should automatically respect anything is stupid. Respect is
the idea of Craig being out at a NASCAR event is stupid. I mean, think about it.
That's correct. I went to one a long, long time ago.
I had to beat you up there a little bit.
There was never any time where I was more of a fish out of water than I was at an. I mean, I am so glad I went, because I got to see this the gladiator nature of ultra right-wing religious and patriotic America, and I did not like it, and they did not like me. I was unable to keep my mouth shut, and I expressed to people how I just thought ridiculous they were, mixing their religion and their patriotism and their gladiatorial love fest for the violence and the carnage. And I went off on them, and they went off on me, and it's lucky I survived it, to tell you the truth. So no, we were not
surprised you got out of there.
If you were to do that in Texas, you might not have survived it.
Yeah, I know. I did it at Richmond.
Most of them here are going to be armed.
Yeah,
well, thank God he wasn't in Belle Isle either.
Yeah, I've tried that same thing when I went to Baylor football games, where I show no respect, and I walk around mumbling and grumbling when they do their collective prayer, and I go into the bathroom and take a leak when they do their Star Spangled Banner, and oh man, they just hate me there. So yeah. I happen to understand, and I agree with Yahowah, that we should not accept them, we should not support them, we should not endure them, we should not respect them, and I don't.
No, it's the fact people do respect them and do endure them that's got the world to the place it's at. That's only obvious, right? I mean, it's obvious. If everybody said, we don't care how you speak, we don't care what your power base is, we don't care what you say, what would they have beyond their words?
And they fade away.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
And what would we have? Well, we'd have freedom, for one thing.
We'd have freedom.
I mean, that's kind of a problem in this world,
It's kind of a nice thing to have.
Somebody came out and said, one of Trump's top national staff members, I've forgotten which secretary it was, but said, I think Americans need to give up this notion that they have privacy. He was talking about the spy networks and the CIA spying on us, along with the NSA.
Yeah, that was Jim
Comey.
The FBI, the head law enforcement guy, says you got to give up on the idea. And this guy's, of course, a crook. I mean, Comey's clearly a crook.
Right. Give up on privacy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, whether or not, there was a big NSA guy that said, I'm not going to do this anymore, that left. And he says the way things are done, basically, and this has been going on, for 15 years, is that they slice into a cable, and it's supposedly to watch some drug dealer, but then they store everything there. So this conversation we're having,
they're spying on every American.
Stored somewhere
they're
now.
trying to spy on everyone in the world. They
Absolutely.
are paranoid because they know they're scumbags.
Well,
and they know that
when you're running child molesting rings
them.
and everything else, you pretty much know you got some personal issues that you don't want others to know about. Sure, of course.
They are scumbag. They know they're scumbags, and
I know that.
The military and intelligence systems do not exist to provide people security. They do not protect anyone from terrorist attack. They never have.
They're
protected anyone from
blackmail
terrorist attack.
operations.
They're all to impose other people's authority and control over you. That's what they exist.
Right, but it's primarily a blackmail operation.
Yeah.
I mean, let's look realistically. You know, when I got a top secret clearance, you know, they went out and knocked on doors in my neighborhoods and stuff where I grew up. You know that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they really do this stuff. That you don't know what's going on, but they really do this stuff. And when you take somebody like, just as an example, take Huma Abedin, you know, and I don't want to make this political, but I just want to make a point. Now, Huma Abedin might have been born in the U.S., I'm not sure, but she lived in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
And she comes over, you know, that's where she grew up. That's where her mother decided to be one of the heads of the Arab Spring and all the rest of the stuff. She comes over to the United States, goes to work for Hillary Clinton, and within 2 years, she's got a top secret clearance. Now, above that, crypto. So what in the hell is she doing with a clearance like that?
Well,
what
in the world is she
scam.
doing as really the number 2 person in the U.S. State Department when her mother was a leader in the Muslim Sisterhood, which is the
right. That's why I said the Muslim Brotherhood,
which is the wellspring from which every Sunni Islamic terrorist group has sprung.
Yeah, well, so what I'm saying to you is at that point, it's obvious she's a Saudi agent, right? I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure that one out. And you're sitting here going, I can't even believe what they do in the open. And they just count on people's stupidity, laziness.
That's correct.
And
That's correct.
Basically, from what I hear of most people, I mean, I heard a guy say that Abe Lincoln, I think I told you this, discovered the U.S. And by the way, I just heard one the other day say, he said that Jesse Waters, he makes me laugh. He asked the guy, he goes, can you name a famous person that got killed at the Alamo? And the guy goes, yeah, Abe Lincoln. Abe Lincoln was killed at the Alamo. I mean, some of this stuff, I mean, I'm in tears laughing so hard. I mean, but
we'd been better off had he been.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
We would have been, maybe. But I'm just saying, I'm telling you, this is, it's pervasive.
Yeah, there might be 650,000 Americans that wouldn't have been killed in the stupid war had he lost his life at the Alamo, as opposed to...
Well, I mean, he was a monster. Everybody knows he was a monster. I mean, he was a monster.
Yeah, of course, and and America worships him, have shrines to him, and he was a monster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, America having a conniption fit over the Russian annexation of Crimea, which was for centuries part of Russia, and the country that's throwing the stones is the country that literally stole Texas and New Mexico and Arizona and California. So, you know, how do we think?
Well, you know, that is the untold story, isn't it? You know, start hanging all the Mexican women out in the streets in San Francisco, or going, you know, after you the Mexicans are sitting there dying with you, trying to, you know, they don't want to live under Mexican rule in Santa Ana, so they fight on your team, and then when you're done, you kick them out or burn their house down.
Yeah,
I mean, really, that's what happened.
Yeah, it's like the Romans during their conquest. Yeah. It's just.
I mean,
that's why Yahweh says it's not going to happen.
We're scum.
We're going to be done. We're going to be done with it. We're not going to let this happen any longer. But
I mean,
as I was reading you know, WikiLeaks just released a bunch of material showing that the CIA is guilty of spying on Americans as the NSA, and every article.
Well, you know who that came from? That was from within our intel agencies. Those are the same people that gave them Podesta.
Because they know
there is a group fighting to shut them down.
Right.
This is to destroy the CIA. They openly stated it.
And let's hope it does, but it won't. You know why it won't?
Well, I hope it does.
Because the vast preponderance of people, or I hope it does too, but it won't, because the vast preponderance of Americans
I think Abe Lincoln got shot at the Alamo. I know.
Yeah. They're apathetic.
I already know.
They're ignorant.
This
they're
is what
irrational.
they rely on.
They've lost their moral compass. And so all the articles on the CIA disclosures are how much damage was done to American intelligence. The fact that you heard that your CIA was using your television and your telephone to spy on you ought to cause you to want to shut them down.
Well, no, I've known that for 5 years.
How are they going to recover?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just pathetic.
Well, there's a fight going on within the intel agency, and there are people that are saying enough of these phony wars, enough of this nonsense.
I said this after the whole Edward Snowden thing. If Edward Snowden leaking what the NSA was doing hurt the program so bad, why is it still around? It's obvious. You're telling me it's useless because of what he released. Why don't you get rid of it?
If you ever listen to that story, how he ended up at the CIA and then booted and then got wounded first and this and that. It's a convoluted CIA story to begin with. It's just nonsense if you listen to it. It's like saying we killed Bin Laden a few years ago when the guy had been dead for 15. It's just insane.
Yeah,
it's insane.
There is nothing that your government tells you that you can trust. Nothing.
No, of course.
You ought not trust anything that they say. You ought not respect them. You ought not endure them. You ought not tolerate them. You ought not show any allegiance to them, and you most certainly ought not respect them.
Oh, I just want to see him. I want to see a fighter tear him down. That's the only thing I like about Trump. I think he wants to tear him down. And maybe I'm wrong.
It was interesting. Trump's getting all sorts of ridicule for saying that Obama tapped his wires, whatever that means.
He did. It's clear he did. And it's funny, the New York Times can write a thing saying they wiretapped him and then say there was no wiretaps. So, so you're arguing with yourself, Mr. New York Times.
This is my view on it. This is my view on it. Welcome
to
the world of the NSA. Everybody in the entire world of any consequence is being spied on. Everyone. If you are of consequence, the government is spying on you. And that means that there is likely to be spying on Obama as they are on Trump. And so if Trump had just said, the administration is spying on everyone, including me, he'd have been absolutely right. Welcome.
Well, he would have been, but they even though they're recording everything we're saying right now and it's being stored, nobody's listening to it because they have limited ears. You and I don't matter. Right. Let's get real. Kirk, on the other hand, are probably listening to
matter.
Yeah.
Kirk matters.
When we moved off the radio show with Shattering Myths and just said, we're going to talk to the family.
Yeah.
The family of Yahowah does not matter to them. And so they don't care anymore.
We're so small, they don't care.
Yeah. When we were doing the radio show
what we say is irrelevant to them.
Constantly exposing the government and the military and the like, then we were an annoyance. But we're not an annoyance anymore because we've decided, we're going to nurture the family. There's a big story out right now about the Marines sharing naked pictures that they took of other Marines. There is no place in the United States that is more sexually adverse and corrupt than the United States military. It is the place where women are the most likely to be sexually abused and that the perpetrators are the least likely to be prosecuted. Why are we praising an organization like that? Why are we tolerating it?
Indoctrination.
I don't know. I think it's a fairly new thing. It wasn't like that when I was in, but okay. Clearly it's out there now, isn't it? I don't know. But why are people praising? Why are people, look, when you take people and you use them as a bastard stepchild, you program them. You got them talking to a flag when you march them off to kindergarten, right? And you march them through, okay, this is the greatness of this country, and this is the great, and you're going to sacrifice. And you really believe this stuff. Hey, I used to be one of them. okay?
Yep.
And so, you go out there, you think you're doing what's right, and the truth is, all they're doing is spending American capital and American labor and American lives to steal from somebody else. And
you have to have an empire.
It's just a power grab. It's a power grab. It's a consolidation of power. That's what it is. When you start looking at it for what it is, it's hard to praise anymore, isn't it?
No.
I mean, that's what it really is.
No different than Rome. No different than the Roman Catholic Church.
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying that's right. But even Yahweh looks at things differently. So there's people that are deceived, and then there's people that purposely deceive others. And those that purposely deceive others are not the most people are just going to be diminished anyway. It's not going to matter. Live your life as good or as bad as you want. But unless you find Yahweh's map and you say, okay, this map is something worth treasuring and sharing and looking at and actually walking that path, because it is a path.
Your life's not going to matter. Then your life's not going to matter.
Your life's not going to matter either way. But if you purposely deceive others, like your General Kelly down there, DHS, that's going to separate children from their parents. Why would you do that when there's so much child sex slavery, and turn them over to the auspices of wonderful people in the Health and Human Services Department in California? Boy, wouldn't that be a lovely thing to do to children, take them from their parents? Why did that come out? When I saw that, it was Lisa that told me that
even if they did that thinking they were doing something good, the people who would apply for those jobs would probably be the worst kind of people you'd want to hire.
I had a partner. I had a business partner in the insurance business for 5 years. I'm not going to mention her name, but she was extremely bright. She had an IQ of over 150. She built dioramas, and she was listed in Who's Who as the top numismatist for Japanese coins in the United States. Her collection was so good that Japan, she actually consigned it to them for 6 months to put in their museum. They wanted to look at it. She had coins they hadn't even seen. Okay, very, very bright woman. And the fact is, her father was he was a Marine. A cannon fodder Marine that died over in Guadalcanal. And her mother had 13 kids, and she was one of them. And all the kids got broke up. And she was given to this real grandmotherly type up in Colorado. She said it was like a picturesque life, this older woman raising her up in the mountains. It was just sheer beauty. And she lived with her for 4 years. And some couple in St. Louis decided that they wanted to have a kid. So they did a nationwide search, and guess who came up to the top of the list? That's right, my partner, Pat. And so they took her, and besides being very bright, she was a beautiful redhead. And they took Pat, and 3 months later, the woman conceives. Well, they don't need Pat anymore. Guess what they do with Pat? They give her a one-way ticket on a plane, don't tell her anything, and they don't tell anybody she's coming, back to Denver. So she walks around an airport for 2 days, and finally some Navy guy walked up and said, "You look tired and hungry. Where's your parents? Are you lost?" And he got her something to eat, and he took her to the authorities and said, "This little girl doesn't know anything, and you need to help her." Well, she then went through a myriad of 8 foster homes where she was systematically used as slave labor. She was gang raped, molested. I mean, the whole 9 yards, and 4 orphanages. Now, that's a true story. I mean, and she has, and that actually happened. And I asked her how typical that was. She goes, "It was typical of every place I was in."
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, you look at the influence of the Roman Catholic Church, rape and pedophilia everywhere. The history of Islam.
Oh yeah, and they're at the top of the list on all these.
Everywhere, right? Everywhere. The U.S.
Anytime you see people,
everywhere.
Some of the studies I've done, And some of the studies, Lisa's really big into those studies, and I've looked at some of them with her. The studies I've done where people are involved in sex slave trades, especially child sex, they all go through these groups and organizations that hide behind the concept that they're going to help children. All of them.
They do. Yeah, they do. Yep. And it's pervasive. And it's... in America, of course, the single most pervasive place for sex abuse is in the U.S. military. But the second most pervasive place for sex abuse is the grand cathedral of political correctness, America's leading universities. Those are the two places that's the most prevalent. And then pedophilia would be the most prevalent in Roman Catholicism. So, look at those.
Any reason why you shouldn't wipe it all out?
Right, positions of human authority and power, and they are.
I want front row seats to watching that one be wiped out.
Yeah, we're
well, the way Pat got all out of all that was she joined the Navy, where she wasn't raped or abused, and she said basically she just lived around a bunch of lesbians, and she said 90% of them were just straight up lesbians. That's what she told me.
I don't know what percentage are lesbians now, but I can tell you that.
No, she told me they even had Wednesday night candle lights, and all these couples would get together, and they'd all be women.
Wow.
And she said she'd just leave. That's what she told me, and she had no reason to lie to me. She was there 6 years, and that was her story to me.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we celebrate. Well, we got lots to talk about next week. We'll pick up the analysis of the location of Zion, things on Zion. For example, there are two very interesting.
Now we're still in chapter 12, right? Because I don't think I have.
Now we're in chapter 8.
We're in chapter 2.
Yeah, chapter. Chapter.
You're
8.
a bit ahead there.
Yeah,
you're making the rest of us look bad reading ahead here.
Yeah, chapter.
No, I mean, we
9,
did go through some chapter 12, didn't we? I think we did.
We did.
At the start of the show.
But, we're going to pick up on chapter 8, starting at page 9, where we talk about the intersections of 777 strides, both by location and elevation.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful.
The two most important.
The 777 again. Yeah, it's amazing, astounding.
I was always interested in what would Yahweh use as a unit of measure? Because he's not using
a stride.
Miles. Yeah, he's not using miles. So what would he use as a unit of measure? He's not going to use feet because that's standing still. He's going to use stride because everything about him is
moving forward. Yeah,
walk with me, walk along the 7
Strong.
steps that lead
consistent.
Right. What I
but
want to do
that
is
goes
I want
right
to go
back
take
to
a
when
walk
you're doing
together,
translations too,
have
isn't
rational conversation. And so a stride, and a stride is essentially between a yard and a meter.
A yard or a meter.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right. And so one of the sites is 777 strides above sea level, and the other one is 777 strides from another place from the most set apart on where the original temple was to where Yosha fulfilled Pesach.
Yeah, these are all big accidents, don't you know? Yeah, it always helps to understand Yahweh's nature, and that of course escaped me. These are the little things that you got to really consider. It wouldn't use a foot because then you're standing, but he'd use a stride because then you're moving forward. You're actually doing something. Yeah,
the single most important word.
Well, the other nice thing about the use of stride is it is a bit of an imprecise measurement. Which goes back to the whole thing we've talked about before, with God's not obsessed with us being 100% accurate on everything.
Correct. Right.
In terms of like dates and stuff. His calendar isn't precise. His measurements aren't specifically precise.
The two most important letters in the Hebrew language are the Yod and the He. And the He is a person standing, not with their feet together, but separated, striding. And the term that Yahweh uses the most to talk about what he wants to achieve with us is halak. It's all about walking. Halak is the Hebrew word for walk. It's a stride. And so we're going to find there's lots of strides. And you're right, it's an imprecise unit of measure that's unique to every individual. And that's the whole way he is. He's not trying to have us be precise on anything. We're just incapable of it. And understanding is not a precise concept. Understanding
it's ever growing.
It's ever growing, ever evolving, putting things together, making connections. And so we're going to find the intersection of the 777s. All right, well, thank you, fellas. Good to have you back, Larry.
Good to have Larry back,
Kirk.
too.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, I couldn't stay away from Kirk and JB that long. I mean, it's hard to listen to you for this long, but Kirk doesn't say much, you know.
Okay. See,
I'll tell you what. Last week Kirk did a lot, and on the observation show,
somebody was asking me for a copy of that because they weren't finding it on the Bless Yahweh site. They weren't, and I meant to email you, Kirk.
Yeah.
And of course, I know you would never get an email. That's like throwing it into cyberspace.
Can you send your handwritten pages on that to JB and to Larry so that they can post them?
The stuff I sent you?
Yeah.
Pretty crude. Okay.
No, it's not crude. I like your handwriting.
No, I think when Kirk goes to work like that, I've seen some of his work in handwriting. It's strong.
Yeah, I like
it's much more legible than mine.
Yeah, so if you could send it to JB.
You must be awful, JB, and none of you would want to try to read my stuff. I'm back into hieroglyphics and things like that.
I can't read half of my own writing.
Yeah, the nice thing about your handwriting, Kirk, not only is it extremely legible, as you would expect from an artist, but you can integrate the Paleo-Hebrew right into it.
That's the biggest thing that helps me, because I know this. I know it's out there and you can get it, and Frank uses it and stuff. But it doesn't do any good if you type as slow as I do. By the time I finish the line, I forget what I was trying to say. So
yeah, I'm convinced that Yahweh chose the alphabet of Hebrew, the Paleo-Hebrew alphabet, because he was trying to paint us a picture. And I look at almost everything he communicates in his word as word pictures.
Yeah.
That's why I began this program, this idea of going from Eden to Eden. That's a word picture.
Yes.
Of camping out, that's a word picture. What Pesach, how you celebrate Pesach, it's a word picture. And so your handwriting does a marvelous job of conveying it, I think, the intended way as a word picture. I mean, the Torah wasn't typed by Abraham, or by Moshe. It wasn't typed. It was handwritten. The 10 statements on the stone, they weren't typed. They were handwritten.
Well, I hope everybody's going to like the cover, the one you got coming up for this. How many more chapters do we have before you go to press?
I don't know. I'm kind of interested to see where...
No rush. I'm done, so it's easy for me.
12s end up, and we'll kind of see where it goes from there. I wasn't quite ready to call it a day with 11, so I'm kind of glad that 12 is developing interestingly, and it's picking up right where it ended in the other material. So, I'm hoping that this analysis of Zion, not Zion, but of the branch, Shemek, proves interesting. I'm trying not to prejudge it right now. And what my hope is that by the time I get through the presentation of it in Zechariah, that I'll be right and that Roy will be right. That's kind of my hope with the whole thing is that
there's a good possibility that it has a way of working out like that a lot of times.
Yeah, I'm kind of hopeful that's the way it works out, and that that all of it is symbolic, and that it's all right. That it is the branch, and it is Yahweh transforming the earth with this word as it relates to the 4th chapter of Yeshaya. So we'll see. It's sometimes you're surprised. Yeah. All right. Well, I've had a long day. Good to be with you. Thank you, Kirk, for doing the research and for the show today with Scott.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, JB, and thank you, Larry, for joining us again.
Shabbat shalom.
Well, it had been a while.
Talk to you guys
so
later.
I thought I'd jump in. You guys have a good night. Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye-bye.